be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Some people told Jesus about the Galileans, whose blood Pilate had mingled with the blood of their sacrifices. Jesus said to them in reply, "Do you think that because these Galileans suffered in this way, they were greater sinners than all other Galileans? By no means. But I tell you, if you do not repent, you will all perish as they did. Or those 18 people who were killed when the tower at Siloam fell on them. Do you think they were more guilty than everyone else who lived in Jerusalem? By no means. But I tell you, if you do not repent, you will all perish as they did." And he told them this parable. There once was a person who had a fig tree planted in his orchard, and when he came in search of fruit on it but found none, he said to the gardener, "For 3 years now I have come in search of fruit on this fig tree, but have found none. So cut it down. Why should it exhaust the soil?" He said to him in reply, "Sir, leave it for this year also, and I shall cultivate the ground around it and fertilize it. It may bear fruit in the future. If not, you can cut it down." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Moses may once have been a prince of Egypt, but at the time God appeared to him in the burning bush, he was a lowly sheep herder without a shekel to his name, totally dependent upon his father-in-law's goodness to him. He was a most unlikely man to be picked, chosen, called by God through the fire in that bush, to go back to Pharaoh and demand in his coarse woolen cloak the release from bondage of his brothers and sisters, the people of Israel. And yet he was the one who was chosen. And it has been true throughout history that it is the most unlikely people who are called by God to be prophets and apostles, who become saints. From Moses to the reluctant Jonah, to the young Jeremiah, to Peter and James and John, who witnessed the transfiguration as we read in last week's gospel, to St. Paul, to Juan Diego, to Mother Teresa, and all of the saints of the church in between, most unlikely people. Well, who is a likely person to be an apostle, a prophet, or a saint? If you were to all look around at the faces of the congregation today, the other people with whom you are sitting here, who among them looks more likely than not to do some great work in the name of Christ and in the name of his church? It would be very hard to predict that future for any one of us. And it is quite likely that we would be wrong if we attempted to do so, and to understand how God's mystery and God's Spirit works its will differently in each one of us. And these candidates for full communion whom we have with us here today, why them? There are many people among us who have been baptized but not initiated in the other sacraments of confirmation, the Eucharist, and yet they are here today. Perhaps some of your friends asked you why you're taking this step. and wondered whether somebody else that they knew was a more likely candidate to be here receiving these sacraments today. But you are here because somehow God's Spirit captured you and led you to this moment of being willing to be an even greater witness for Christ in our world. We are unlikely people to be loved by God. With all of our flaws and foibles and sinfulness and the ways in which we all too often turn away and try to run and hide from his burning love for us. And he is a most unlikely God to love us so much, despite all that, to continually call us back, to call us to repent, not to abase ourselves, but as an invitation to realize that his love burns with a fire that is all-encompassing, but does not consume us, calling us with a patience that exhausts God, but never ceases to stop him from asking us to return to him. For his desire for that is a patience and a love that never can be quenched.